the VCB TDC meeting, and it's May 9th. If I could everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated, and we could do a roll call now.
Commissioner Cecil Pendergrass.
Here.
Councilwoman Molly Smith. Grant Myers. Tony Lappin. Here. Jay Johnson.
Here.
Rob Wells.
Here.
Bill Wachoulis.
Good morning.
Councilman Bill Stuckey.
Here.
Councilman Larry Fiesel. Here. Councilman Nigel Bullock. Mayor Dan Allers.
Here.
Councilman Liston Bouchette, Pam Cronin, and Brian Kramer are excused. We do have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here this morning. And it's another beautiful day in Southwest Florida. We could have a motion of approval of April 11th, 2024 TDC minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any comments regarding the minutes? Any corrections, revisions? Any public comment regarding the approval of the minutes? No public comment? Any objections? No objection, will come back. Thank you. No objection, motion passes. Public to be heard. Any public comment this time? No? Okay. Any municipalities to be heard? I'm sure Cape Coral's here, right, Bill?
Darn right.
Good morning, Andriana Peterson with the City of Cape Coral Economic and Business Development Office. So we are close to July already, and so we started selling tickets for our Red, White, and Boom event. Any vendors who would like to participate can also find information on capeboom.com. But the tickets are available if anybody would like to join in on the festivities for 4th of July. The national headliner is Parmalee as well. Events that we have coming up, we have the Vino Picasso on, May 10th and June 8th. It's $42 per person, and that is going to be at Rotary Park. For more information, you can call 239-549-4606. We also have a mystery trip. It did very well last trip that they did, so that's $59 per person. And also, you can call 574-0575 to register or for more information. At Lake Kennedy Center, we have a designer bag bingo, which is taking place on May 24th. And then also every Saturday, our farmers market at Club Square. We have a luau party coming up on May 14th, live music and dinner. It starts at 6:30. Again, for more information, feel free to call 574-0575. And our tourism spotlight is Big Tiki Tours of Southwest Florida. It's a locally owned and operated business. It picks up at the Westin at Cape Coral. And the boat tour offers up to 12 seats, and you can go to bigtikitours.com for more information. Our EBDO Spotlight, these are just a few of the businesses that we've highlighted over the last few months. Facebook likes and shares. And our Quest update. So we have had 1,382 people sign up, 3,606 location check-ins, 262 prize awarded, 89 coupons redeemed, 78 people who have been entered for the Westin 2-night stay, and 33 people who have completed all 30 check-ins and have earned their Sunsplash season pass. And last but not least, our industry roundtable. This month, May 24th, we are focusing on CRA businesses. So if there's any businesses in the CRA that would like to participate, they're more than welcome to reach out. It starts at 8 a.m. at City Hall on that Friday. And then the following months, we have retail and lender financing. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cities like to be heard? Okay. We'll move on to the report of the Executive Director, Tamara.
All right. Before I get started, I'm going to ask Pamela Johnson to come up and give us an update on what we are doing for National Travel and Tourism Week, which begins May 19th through the 25th. Just want to let you know what the VCB had planned for that day, that week.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pamela Johnson, VCB Deputy Director, and I'm here to extend an invitation, a special invitation from the VCB staff to invite you all to join us in celebration of National Travel and Tourism Week. As Tam just said, it's May 19th through the 25th. And of course, we like acronyms. Nobody likes to speak anymore, so I'm going to be referring to it as NTTW. Okay. So this is an annual celebration that really underscores the value of and importance of tourism's role in driving our nation's economy. As we recognize this important week, we acknowledge the value of travel and tourism to our local economy, job creation efforts, and the quality of life Lee County residents enjoy. I just want to share some of the key initiatives that will be happening this week, or that week. There will be a ceremonial resolution that will be presented at the upcoming May 21st Board of County Commissioners meeting, proclaiming National Travel and Tourism Week in Lee County. And TDC members will receive a special invitation if you'd like to join us at that proclamation. Then we are marking the occasion by Lighting Up Lee. We have an initiative that will illuminate various landmarks in blue across Lee County to showcase the value of tourism in our region. One of those landmarks is the RSW Control Tower, so we're really excited about that. Then a couple of meetings ago, I think Brian shared with you the value of tourism, which we refer to. It's a video called Sand Dollar Cents, and we're running a social media campaign to highlight how tourism benefits the local economy. So check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And then finally, really special, the VCB plans to show gratitude to our local hospitality industry partners for going the extra mile. We're sharing a small token of appreciation, a challenge coin that we're calling a gratitude coin. This will be personally delivered to 66 local hospitality business partners who make our destination shine. Accompanying the coin will be a handwritten note from the TDC staff member, from the staff member, VCB staff member, who nominated the business partner and explains why they were selected. So I think Fran has delivered to you your gratitude coins, and we want to thank the TDC for its leadership and support of tourism. And we are just excited to do this new initiative. Not a new one. As you know, we used to celebrate community-wide with the travel rally, and until we're able to get back to doing that, this is how we're going to celebrate this year. So I just wanted to extend that invitation, and thank you for your time this morning.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Appreciate that update. All right. March bed tax collection, $7.7 million for the fiscal year to date, almost $27.4 million. And then, Bill, for you particularly, but for everyone, of course, so we can see how this looks in context of the last few years. Certainly not 22, but also not 19 or 21 either. Star report for March. Occupancy down a little bit, 2.5%. ADR in essence flat, and RevPAR down 2.5% as well. Definitely been challenged a little bit with occupancy this year. I will add that when I look at the statewide report, we're seeing that many of the destinations around the state are also seeing some occupancy challenges. Remember, more product is coming back online, so we're growing demand to the area, but The addition of rooms exceeds the demand at this point. STR, then here you can see how March 24 ranks up against the 5 previous periods for March. In terms of vacation rentals, seen a big growth in vacation rental occupancy, also a growth in ADR, so perhaps some of that strength in the vacation rentals is taking away a bit from the hotels, but to be determined in terms of the way that plays out, but it's good to see the vacation rentals coming back strong. In terms of number of hotel rooms, as we have been doing for quite a while now, this is your monthly update on our analysis, and we are at 77.5%. Did have a couple of, we had one property open this past month, the Extended Stay America, am I getting that right, Nick? Yes. Extended Stay America, which is on 6 Mile Cypress Parkway near the baseball stadium and Metro, between the baseball stadium and Metro, has opened. So that you see in the added to the Fort Myers number. But, you know, onesies, twosies coming in from the islands.
So, just 10,000-foot view, this is probably going to get to 80% by the end of the year, and then it'll hold at 80% for the next 3 to 5 years?
We do have, I mean, there are, if I remember correctly, about 5 hotels under construction right now inland. We have one property under construction on Sanibel. Shalimar is under construction. So, but, yeah, there's going to be a point where we're not going to see, you know, significant increase. And it's been pretty slow the last few months, as you know. We've been in the 70s for quite a while. It's going to take time. Patience. Not something we're good at, right, Bill? I'm not very patient either. I want those numbers up too. Great traffic at the airport for the month of March, 1.5 million, and for the calendar year to date, almost getting close to 3.9 million there. This is good news. Both increases over 23, and I believe in both cases, second best ever, right? Before I ask Joseph to come up, I want to share with you, Rob sent me a little note. He was caught the Today Show on yesterday morning, and RSW, well, I should say Fort Myers got a little shout out about the Breeze Hub at RSW. So we're going to just play a portion of that clip. This is Mark Elwood, who's a travel journalist, and he's speaking there to Craig Melvin, and we're just going to play the portion that talks about us, but
But remember, there are new upstart airlines that do really interesting routes. There's an airline I love called Breeze, which calls itself the nice...
Oh, yeah.
The nice low-cost carrier started by the guy who started JetBlue. It services a lot of the Southeast in secondary airports. It's got a base in Fort Myers, for example. Mm-hmm. So you might find you get a great deal on an airline that doesn't instantly spring to mind.
So you got to do some homework.
Yeah.
All right, never neglect to geotag your luggage.
Do you do this?
No.
So he was giving advice on things that you should not do, and one of his was don't discount secondary markets and alternative airlines from the big carriers, and thus mentioned Breeze. So it's always nice when we get a shout out on the Today Show, and thanks Rob for eagle eye on that for us so we could share it this morning. Now I'm going to ask Joseph to come up and give us the report for the first quarter, but he's also going to give us some year-end numbers since this is his first presentation since we have the year-end numbers. A little bit of a summary.
All right. Well, thank you, Tam. Again, my name is Joseph St. Germain. I'm the president of Downs St. Germain Research. We're going over 3 things today. As Tamara mentioned, we're going to give a calendar year 23 top line, We're going to also look at January through March 2024, an overview, and then also we're going to cover a crosstab analysis that we did, kind of an overview of that based upon the conversation I had last time I was here. Because we're covering so much, each one won't go into as much depth as usual, but at the same time, the team has the full reports as we go. So one of the things I say before I get into calendar year 2023, and between each section, I'll stop and see if there's questions before we move on to each one. The story for 2023, we know, was a recovery year. TDT was down about 39%. Overall, the metrics of like direct spend and visitation was down in the 25 to 30% range. That's largely because while we saw a significant decrease in those staying in paid accommodations, we still had those folks who are visiting friends and relatives, staying in the second homes, that was fairly even year over year. So, but let's look at the big numbers, how it looks first year for post-Ian. Direct spend was just under 2.9 million. That's a decrease of about 27%. Economic impact was down by a similar percentage, but still, the overall economic impact of tourism to the county was over $4.6 billion. Visitation was just under 3 million people, down about 29%. So you'll notice there the decreases in spend were not as great as the decreases of visitation. We just had a slightly higher yield per visitor. And the room nights were down 26.4%, so a little bit over 4.3 million. Now, those are the big numbers, but still, and to the point where Pamela just mentioned, what's the value of tourism? What does it mean to this community other than those big old numbers? It still means jobs and wages. Tourism supports over 48,000 jobs and almost $1.5 billion in wages. Those are down 30% and 24.5% respectively. The wages aren't, the decrease in wages isn't as much as jobs because in general, wages are going up here, not just in hospitality, but in a lot of different areas. It also supports taxes. In fact, you know, this is one of the data points I always like to bring up when we do an annual study like this. What do you say to someone who lives in this county but doesn't do anything in tourism? And what you can do is say that the tourist saves you money on taxes. In fact, it saves the typical household in Lee County a little bit over $1,000. The reason why I always want to mention that and spend a little time on that, that doesn't show up on their property tax bill. It doesn't show up anywhere. It doesn't say, hey, tourists save you this. But this when we look at the sales tax that is being supported by visitors and divide that by the number of households, it ends up being just over $1,000 in tax savings. So there's a lot more to that annual report, but I really want to hit the highlights, and I wanted to stop here to see if there's any questions about 2023 before I shift over to January through March 2024.
Questions?
All right, well, we will go right into January through March 2024. So this is your big season in general. We saw significant recovery. You probably saw that, felt that with traffic and things of that nature, but it's still lagging behind 2022. So we're going to show some figures comparing to last year, but also the previous year to give a little bit of context. This is always focusing generally on the folks on the right, but visitation was up 24%. The number of days they were in the market was up 15%. Room nights up almost 31%, and direct spend and economic impact was up 27 and 26% respectively compared to the previous year. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out, even though we had fewer days those are the number of days visitors are in the destination, the increase in direct spend was significant because most of the increase in visitors year over year were visitors staying in paid accommodations. That's where we saw the largest growth. People staying in paid accommodations tend to spend more money overall. So just something I wanted to note. And I'm not going to have time to go through showing all the 5-year graphs, but year graphs bounce up and down because of a pandemic and a hurricane, and you're dealing with more things here than any other destination in Florida is dealing with. But throughout, I'll try to give you a sense of where this stands. This direct spend and economic impact levels were similar to 2019 and 2020. 2019 was that pre-pandemic year. 2020, you were off to a blazing start before we know what happened really in the middle of March. As we compare it to 2022, which admittedly 2022 is really the highest of the highs. I mean, that's one of the things as we look at these metrics, one of the things that we see in 2023 and 2024 was not only were you dealing with hurricane recovery, but there was a statewide normalization in visitation. So that was something that you're kind of dealing with, a couple of things. But as you can see, as we look to the peak of 2022, visitation, visitor days, room nights, direct spend, all down about 25 to 30%. So we're still off from the peak. But as I go back to this, you kind of see what the recovery is getting there. But as the conversation we just had, that was a good one. It's going to take some time to recovery. The fiscal year to date, normally we look at calendar year, but for January through March, it would just be the same. But I did just want to show you this fiscal year to date kind of really shows you how recovery is going compared to early pre-Ian. And you see visitation, visitor days, room nights, direct spend, economic impact, all up. So again, I think the note of what I'm trying to say is you're not there yet, but recovery is happening. You can see it in the numbers. You can probably feel it on a day-to-day basis. As we look at occupancy, ADR, RevPAR compared to the previous year, all up year over year. As Tam showed a minute ago, vacation rentals are driving that a little bit more than the hotels, just because one of the things we've noticed, we saw more people staying in vacation rentals this January through March versus last year, largely due because the vacation rentals took a little bit longer to get back online. A lot of things are still taking vacation rentals are finally kind of getting back to there. So I'm not going to touch on as many things about the visitor as usual, again, due to time, but I do want to touch on a couple of things. The top reasons people are visiting: relaxing and winding, beach, friends and relatives. I do want to note this was kind of the return of the beach as a reason for visiting. You compare this to a year ago, it was about 12% of why people came to the beach, and now we're back to 1%. So again, not all the way back, but from what I heard, talking to some folks this morning, you not only got to see the beach, you also got to see the beach on trucks and everything as they're coming through during this season. As we look at promotions, you still have over 2 in 5 who recall promotions, and almost 20% of all visitors were influenced by recalling promotions. That's around the national average overall. The top sources of recall, internet and social media, are really leading the way, but also travel reviews and blogs, television, and there's a lot of other mediums. Just anytime I'm up here, I want to focus on the highlights. I do want to take a second to talk about transportation, because one of the biggest increases year over year compared to January 2023 was the percentage who flew. That was up about almost 2/3 of your visitors flew to the area. That was up from like 59% last year. And then as we looked at the metrics of January, February, and March, at least what RSW supplies, like that is almost at those 2022 levels. And that's even though you're still recovering from the storm. And so not only do 2/3 of your visitors fly, 56% travel through RSW. As we look at the profile, I really want to look at the origin regions. Where we saw the biggest growth was the Midwest and the Northeast. Midwest up to 42.5% of your visitors. And I also want to note the increase in international. The percentage increase in international was only like 1.5 percentage points, but that represents an increase of 18,000 more international visitors, because we saw an increase in visitation altogether. So in general, we are seeing international come back. The international visitation was up about 33% overall. Top origin markets: Minneapolis, St. Paul, New York, Boston, and Detroit. Seeing Minneapolis, St. Paul, Boston during spring training, not surprising. These are generally some of our top markets, but I did want to note those given spring training. The experience itself, the top accommodations, hotels and motels, and condos and vacation rentals were about the same based upon those who we interviewed. But the biggest growth, as I mentioned earlier, was amongst vacation rentals. Last year, about 20% of your visitors stayed in vacation rentals. This year, over 31%. So and again, that's something that Tam mentioned. We looked at those vacation rental figures. The average length of stay was a little bit shorter. Almost a week for your typical visitor. Granted, I will always note for January to March, that gets inflated a little bit because you have snowbirds. Snowbirds was about 1/8 to 1/10 of your visitations. That brings up that number. But 1 in 4 were first-time visitors, and 20% have visited more than 10 times, which is about the same compared to last year. And finally, I'm going to spend a little extra time on the post-trip evaluation because this is where we saw the greatest change year over year was visitor satisfaction. All these metrics went up significantly. 91% were likely to recommend the area, but more importantly, I always look at that top box, who are very likely to recommend the area. That was at 60% compared to 44% last year. That's a 16 percentage point increase. The percentage who are very likely to return was at 64% compared to 49% last year, a 15% increase. Those who are likely to return in January through March 2025, 54% are very likely compared to 44% in 2023. So these metrics, and I'm about to tell you some more, up significantly. We don't see these increases very often. Part of it is we had a full another year for hurricane recovery, of course, but I do want to note it is significant, especially when we get to concerns here in a moment. I just want to focus on the positives briefly. The percentage who are very satisfied were 59%. That's up from 49% last year. That's plus 10%. The percentage who were very satisfied with their customer service was 58% compared to 45% the previous year, up 13 percentage points. And the percentage whose hotel exceeded paid accommodations exceeded expectations, 38%, up from 31% last year. And again, the reason I focus on these, you have these big numbers of 94% satisfaction and 92% satisfaction with customer service. The reason I like to focus on that top box, that very satisfied, those are the ones who are more likely to go home and tell other people about their trip. If they're satisfied, if it was okay, if it was good but not great, they're less likely to do that. So that's why I want to focus on that. So not only did more people come, spend more money, they were much more satisfied, which means they are more likely to come back, and they're also more likely to tell other people about the trip. And then finally, I did want to mention visitor concerns. About half of your visitors mentioned traffic as the least favorite part of your visit. Stories that I've heard just from talking about 4 people. It sounds like it was a busy time on the roads. We not only had your local residents, your snowbirds who are in town, plus it sounds like there's a lot of trucks moving sand and things of that nature. So, but that is higher than normal. At the same time, these are visitor concerns. They need to be noted. I think it's important, but also I don't want to lose the fact that your overall satisfaction was up significantly. High prices, nearly 1 in 5 mentioned high prices, I believe is on this board. That's one of those things. You're always going to have some people mentioning high prices, and that's just kind of how it goes. And about 1 in 6 manage damaged buildings. But I do want to note that 1 in 4 said there was nothing they disliked about the visit, which is kind of the standard year over year. Again, this is another whistle-stop tour through January through March, but I wanted to stop here before I give a little bit of background on some of the cross-tabulations that you folks asked for. But any questions on January through March 2024? Yes, sir.
Joseph, actually, I want to go back to your slide on jobs and wages.
Yep.
Everybody hates seeing negative numbers, but if you look at that, it said that we were down 24.5% in wages and salaries. Isn't that number being skewed by the fact that we don't have enough people to fill positions?
Oh, yes, I'm sure. I mean, that's one of the things.
Really down.
Yeah, that's one of the things with, I think it is down somewhat just because you don't have as much spending in the economy and things of that nature. But to your point, that's one of the things about a lot, like this visitor tracking study, it tells you a lot of what, not a lot of why. We kind of, but I think that's a good point to help explain some of the why.
And if someone's an outsider, they're reading that saying there really aren't good paying jobs in Southwest Florida. That'd be my concern with that.
And I will say one of the other things about the jobs and wages number, it's largely leisure and hospitality, but it supports jobs and wages in other markets as well. There's finance, people finance, all the things that we're doing. There's construction, there's property taxes in there, so supporting firefighters and police and teachers as well. So, but it's a good point. The large majority are in leisure and hospitality, but it's not just those jobs.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on that, it might be a good idea to compare unemployment rate in the same periods that would illustrate, the fact that while the employment is down numerically, it's not down availability. So maybe to couple that up to make sure that that's not misperceived. Number one, the question that I had was on the slide where it talked about average stay of 7.1 days. Is there some way in there that we qualify that number with those people that come for an extended stay, particularly during spring training, or for those people that are snowbirds? What happens with those? How does that affect those numbers?
I mean, in the full report, we break it out, and really because of that, what we do in January through March when we're calculating averages, we cap the stay at 30 days, even though we know some people are staying beyond that, just to give you a better sense of what the typical visitor is staying. Because if we take to your point, instead of reporting mean averages, we could report medians, which may be a better idea of what the typical stay is. But yeah, we can break all of those out. They're just it becomes how many ways do we want to cut?
But they're in there now.
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They're in there.
One more question on the jobs. As I look at that number, to me, it looks like they're identical to the rooms not available since the hurricane.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are the construction jobs that are getting the businesses back open considered it as a tourism job? They won't be in there. So, we're indirectly we're employing more people that are doing the reconstruction that don't necessarily show up while we've lost the workers in the business.
Construction category.
Right.
Jobs. I mean, they're not going to be in the hospitality category.
But they're building the tourism-based businesses.
But you're looking at hotels on Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach. That's a big chunk.
Oh, 100%.
And you don't take all the restaurants.
No question. I mean, that's what I see. It's definitely the damage from the hurricane that impacted.
And the Airbnbs and VRBOs of the people that would have been cleaning those and maintaining them. I mean, they're all on jobs. So
Layers and layers, right?
Right, 100%. There's a lot of things to unpack in that one number.
Any other questions for Joe?
All right. Let me touch base very briefly on the crosstabs that came from a discussion last time I was here. Before I show you some of the results, I'm not going to hit you with a whole bunch of charts and tables. I'm just trying to summarize. One of the things I want to mention about the cross tabulations, we looked at the different areas where people stay and looked at some of the satisfaction concerns and activity metrics based upon previous conversations that we have here. I want to couch this with a couple of caveats. We only looked at last year for this. We didn't think it made sense to go pre-Hurricane Ian. It just because behavior has changed and things of that nature has changed. So therefore, that's a lot of data for over the course of a year for your county. But when we take it into specific areas where people stayed, those sample sizes get a little bit small. So that's why I want to take some of this with a grain of salt. And this is something when we run, we can have run again next year, so we have 2 years of data, which would feel a little more comfortable about the data per area. Secondly, these crosstabs are based on where they stayed. That doesn't mean they aren't visiting other places. So that's just something I want to note. So just because you see things, whether it's Tiva, Fort Myers Beach, what have you, that doesn't mean they aren't visiting other places across the county. So, some of the things that we mentioned or asked for, hey, I was asked, how do visitor activities change based upon where they stayed? So what I'm focusing on here is we looked at what the average, what the typical visitor does, those percentages, and then we kind of looked at what are the things that are indexing a little bit higher based upon their area. So if you're staying in 2023, you are more likely to go to the beach, look at nature, diving and snorkeling. But I do want to note there's 60% we're likely to go to or beach, 41% nature, and 13% for diving and snorkeling. They're just more likely than typical visitor. That doesn't mean we have more people diving and snorkeling than we do going to the beaches. As we look at Fort Myers Beach, they're more likely to go to beaches, go to bars and nightclubs. Bonita Springs, they're more likely to go to restaurants. Estero, more likely to go fishing and golf and tennis. Fort Myers, fishing, and Cape Coral, they're more likely to go to restaurants and participate in water sports. So these are just a little bit of how your visitors are a little bit different. And one of the other things, anytime we cross-tab certain things in an area, because they are moving around the county, those differences aren't always as high as you may think they may be, just because it's based on where they stayed, not necessarily, go ahead, Tam.
And it's where they reported that they stayed.
Yes.
Which I always caveat, not everybody knows our municipal boundaries the way we do.
Yes.
So, I think when we say Fort Myers, sometimes that may be a bigger area than the city of Fort Myers, or when we say, do our residents, do our visitors exactly know Estero from Bonita, those municipalities that are very close to each other. They don't always know.
So does that mean then that someone that reportedly stayed in Bonita Springs and went to restaurants, mainly in Bonita Springs, but while they stayed in Bonita Springs, they went to Captiva to enjoy the beach, and they went to Cape Coral to go kayaking, that's only showing up under Bonita Springs?
Correct.
Information.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, we can't get that level of granularity with a survey like this. Like, we can't see where they're going and what they're doing exactly. We can ask them where they're staying and what they're doing. So I'm like, I am more. If people come and they participate in golf and tennis, I can tell you they're more likely to have stayed in Estero, but I can't tell you where they went to play golf or tennis, for example.
Gotcha.
Just like the water sports.
Yep.
For the Cape Coral visitor could be at, not in Cape Coral.
Yep.
It could be somewhere else, but they say they stayed in Cape Coral and they enjoyed water sports.
Right.
So it's one of the things we want to be responsive to this request, but also there's certain limitations to what the we also asked, were there concerns that were differences by area? For Sanibel and in Captiva, people more likely to be concerned about insects compared to the typical visitor. Granted, they were out in nature a little bit more, so that tends to Fort Myers a little bit more. Fort Myers Beach, a little bit more worried about beach seaweed. They were on the beach more than others. Bonita Springs, when I say nothing stands out, it was just their numbers were very similar to what the typical visitor says. That's not a statement about Bonita Springs. I want to make sure that's very clear. It's just they were very similar to your typical visitor.
Somebody said boring, I say outstanding.
Yes, and I yes,
That's correct.
yes, and I will say, of all the areas, they were the more visitors who stayed there were more likely to say there was no issues. I mean, it was close, but just again, I just want to make sure that's clear in case. I didn't want someone to circle that and take that out of context, so I appreciate that. Estero, more likely they were more concerned about high prices. Again, one of the things about high prices is that's a matter of expectation and a matter of what they think. Someone may be paying $800 a night and not think that is high, and someone may be paying $200 a night and they may think that price is high. Just again, I'm trying to give you some additional context. And Fort Myers and Cape Coral, I want to note across all of these areas, traffic was very high. Highest amongst folks who stayed in Fort Myers or Cape Coral, traffic was a bigger concern. So, and again, that's one of the things I want to note about indexing is traffic was still high for all of these. It was just highest for Fort Myers and Cape Coral. And finally, your satisfaction metrics. Satisfaction metrics in Sanibel and Captiva had the highest top box, meaning the highest rates of very satisfied, most likely to return. And it's just one of the things I always want to note about that, especially for people, that's the place that's having so much recovery, so you just have less people there than maybe what they're accustomed to, which may have led to higher satisfaction. And then every other area had high satisfaction. They were just similar to other places, so nothing really stood out from a cross-tabulation perspective. So, any other questions on the crosstabs? I just want to give a brief overview, Rob.
So, do you remember seeing any variance to origin markets based on where the survey was taken?
That we didn't run, but that's something that we can.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting because I know a lot of course, that's just as good as anybody can do. We're doing these
Yep.
surveys, I understand that, but it would be interesting to see if there's any variance.
Yep, that's something we can look at.
Joseph, just to remember, this was done just for this year.
Yeah, so that was January through December 2023 when we looked at that data, because that was a big chunk of data. So that was, we focused on the last calendar.
Okay, last calendar.
Yes. So it wouldn't have included, for example, this last January through March where we saw like the traffic concerns go up a little bit. Not a little bit, plenty. But it's a great question.
To have enough data to do those breakdowns by area, we need that full year of data.
Yep.
And you can't look back at 23, weird year. You can't look back at 22. So I think, when we get to the end of 24 and then we can look at that collectively, then I think it's better data.
Yep.
You don't like small sample sizes, and unfortunately, the nature of the beast, because we have so many areas to get finite about, then you get really small sample sizes. So I caution you to put a lot of emphasis on this data because it is a really small sample size. And
yes,
you said that to begin with, but I'm going to reiterate.
No, and it should be, because that's one of the things. It's just such an important piece, because if you don't worry about sample sizes, it's just a number. We want to bring meaningful data to the fold, so it's just something to.
Roughly how many surveys are you doing a month?
Approximately, it's about 900 a quarter. We usually go a little bit over, so over the course of a year, that was approximately 4,000 surveys. But then it's broken down, we had more people staying in Fort Myers, so that sample size was a little bit higher, so it's based upon where people are staying and things of that nature.
All right.
I know that was a lot. Any other questions?
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you very much, as always.
All right, with that, I conclude my report, sir.
Thank you. Move on to the Jeff Milking report of sports development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Council. Today we're going to discuss January, February, March of this year. All 3 months were really solid at some of our peak historical numbers. So January highlights 14,500 hotel room nights with 13,000 visitors, about a $6.7 million direct spending. Highlighted some of our key events with Perfect Game. MLK weekend was almost 5,000. All the Major League Baseball fantasy camps coming back is always a great boon for us during January. And then you'll see at the bottom, January, we actually host the most single number of events, 20 in the month of January as we ever had. And there is our trend line, and you can see it's up there where it's supposed to be. Going to February, 10,000 hotel room nights filled with sports tourism events, $3.5 million direct visitor spending. A lot of that did come through Roy Hobbs Sunshine Classic. Most of you know his October, November World Series. He's also got a very strong product here in February. We are still working strongly with Florida Youth Soccer, even considering the Kelly Road situation. We had 3 FYSA events, totaling almost 2,000 hotel room nights, and we did squeak out, I think, by 60 room nights, our best February ever. I think you can see the next slide. So again, up there with some of our best years historically. And heading to March, which we don't spend a ton of resources and times chasing after sports tourism business in March, just due to the fact that our hotels are full and we'd like to spend our resources at other times of the year, but still a strong March, 8,000 hotel room nights sold, $3.7 million of direct visitor spending. Almost all of those room nights come through Gene Cusick Classic, which is owned and operated by our Parks and Rec department. It's baseball and softball college teams coming down during spring breaks. Perfect Game had a small event, and we also had a hockey championship down at Hertz Arena. So trend line there. And then I will mention a couple things. Again, seeing so soon after Hurricane Ian, having 3 months that are almost near the top of our of our economic impact standards. There's a lot to do, and I say it a lot, is a lot to do with our Parks and Recreation partnership. And Mac's here today, and Kathy, and I just wanted to say thank you to them. And this quarter was especially challenging for everyone, I think, because the Ag Expo took on so much of our resources and time and effort. I want to say specifically thank you to Tommy Castle from our team. He even put a suit on for today. There was a chance Tommy was going to do the TDC report today, so he's dressed ready to go. But Tommy had a huge role in the Ag Expo, and yet to still be able to help manage our sports tourism events, just like all the Parks and Rec folks did, and all the other county staff that jumped in and helped, including folks from Tam's team and otherwise. I just want to say thank you to everyone for the time management skills. To be able to put so much effort and focus into the Ag Expo and still maintain our sports tourism levels at the highest is appreciated by, I know, all of us. So, and finally, I want to recognize spring training. Spring training certainly was very successful this year. We had the number 3 and 4 most attended teams. The Red Sox came in 130,000 total attendance. The Twins were slightly under that at 116,000, but the important thing I think to note about the Twins was they did have a 16% increase in daily average attendance. So many Minneapolis fans, as you could see through the travel survey, are coming back in droves. So I want to congratulate the teams and Lee County overall for having incredibly strong spring training, having 2 of the 4 teams of the 15 in the Grapefruit League, I think, is important. And finally, I want to say thank you and recognize a very dear friend of mine and a colleague, and you all know Mark Weber. He has chosen to retire. I think probably a lot of people in the room know it already, but if you don't, he has chosen to golf, I think, 5 days a week. And when are you retiring? June?
Mark, stand up. Come on, stand up.
So, Mark has been our liaison to the TDC, to a lot of things we do community-wide, sits on a lot of boards, has been the face of Minnesota Twins in our community on a daily basis, and has been so partner-oriented with Lee County. And I just want to recognize that and say thank you, Mark, for everything you've done for us.
TDC for all the support that you've given the Minnesota Twins, not only the past decade that I've been here, but since 1991. As you can see in the slides that they put up before, Minneapolis-St. Paul is the #1 DMA coming into this market in January, February, March, but I believe on an annual basis also. So the Minnesota Twins are, proud to be partners with Lee County. It's been a great public-private partnership. We will be staying here, but my time is passed, and I'm passing the torch to Victor Gonzalez, who will be a great representative for the Minnesota Twins for Lee County and in the future. So thank you for all the support you've given the Twins, but myself, and it's a very welcoming community, and I will maintain our residency here, and you'll see me around. Thank you.
Chair, that's my report. Thank you.
Again, Mark, congratulations, and thank you for everything you've done. I know you've been, even before I was on the board, I knew you from my city side, and you've been a key asset to everything and the success in Lee County for the Twins and for our community. And thank you for choosing Lee County for your home. And if you ever get a chance, if I get some free time, give me a call for golf, and love to get out there one day. You don't have to come to our board meetings though for anything, so just call me if you need anything. But again, thank you for everything. And it's just, and like Jeff said, the partnerships with all the different groups in Lee County makes it so beautiful and great. And I do want to touch real quick what Jeff was talking about, the Ag Expo. Now, if you did not get a chance to go there this year, you missed a big event. And compared to what the fair used to be like, compared to what our staff, our team put together this year, was amazing. It was so shocking and surprising how great, like Jeff said, the time management. Every department in the county, from DOT to Parks and Rec, from TDC, kind of like what COVID did, everybody came together, and that was one great event. So again, thank you to all the staff that's here, everybody's listening that worked on that event. So we pulled it off. It was a great event. So definitely a good thing. Yes, Bill.
Thank you. Jeff, I wanted to make sure that you knew, and if you watched the news, you knew that there's a little bit of a squabble around what residents will pay or not pay to go to the pickleball center that we've got about to open in Cape Coral. But the more I've learned about that, the more that's a silent giant to bring people into our area. And this facility is going to be one of 3 world-class facilities in the state. And the tournament play and the people that travel to go to these things is beyond my wildest imagination as I looked into it. And so I think that could be a huge draw for people to our area, somewhat away from the major sports, but the social and family and loyalty around these pickleball organizations and groups, I can see that being a major draw to our area if we do tournaments there. So other than just the city promoting that type of stuff, I really think we need to look at that as a county as well. I think it'll bring a lot of people to our area.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. We've already met with the organization that's going to be managing the facility. We know them well. Tommy and I and a couple staff from Parks and Rec were recently at our national convention where we have business meetings, and we had a very exciting meeting with USA Pickleball and some other organizations, and really started to showcase, even though we only have renderings at this point, showcasing your facility and letting the world know that this is a great venue to have these tournaments at. So we're going to be working on that.
Awesome, thank you.
Jeff,
Yeah,
one
Tony?
question, just educate me a little bit. The Major League Baseball fantasy camps, are these just for our teams that are here, are there other teams? And how long?
So a camp lasts about a week, somewhere between 6 and 7 days. The Minnesota Twins have their own internal fantasy camp, which they have somebody that works to promote and fill that camp up with Twins stars from the past. The Red Sox have both a men's and a women's official fantasy camp. And then we also have 2 more fantasy camps that are not affiliated with the major league teams, but are at our facilities. And one of them is called, they call it the Boston camp because there are a lot of ex-Boston players that are there. But they're all about 7 days long. So they're good pieces of business for us. There is a limit. There's a cap because they only have so many professional players that are here. So there's an application. You've got to register for it, and then but they play every day. They mix up teams with the stars. They get to play in the stadium. So it's a good.
What's the average age of these people that go to?
I don't know that. Mark, do you know the average age?
This year we had, our campers range from age 30 to 80. And the average age, quite frankly, is probably about 58 to 60 years old.
Yep.
Tony, do you need an application?
No.
Stick with golf and pickleball. Fishing, there you go. Okay, thank you. Anything other questions before we move on? No? Good. Okay, we're going to new business. We have to get a motion approval for the quarterly fiscal year 24 budget report in April. Sarah?
Good morning, everybody. I'm April Bonnets, for the record, your fiscal manager. Today I'm going to provide an overview of the quarter 2 budget reports for the operating business units, VCB's operating, the Beach and Shoreline operating, and the Sports Development operating business units. First up, we have the VCB operating business unit. And quarter 2 spend rate is pacing right at 46% of the budget. No significant activity to call out, but we have added a line at the bottom for the aid to the chambers impacted by Ian. Next slide is the Beach and Shoreline. So the Beach and Shoreline is pacing right at 39% of the budget. No significant variances to call out there. And the next business unit is Sports Development. and they are pacing right at 51% of their budget. And also, we didn't see any significant items to call out there. And that concludes everything that I need to report on. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one. On data processing, is that front-ended on, and this is in the VCB first report, is that front-ended in the first quarter and then the third and fourth will be less?
Yeah, that's mostly our software.
Okay.
You see that big expenditure in Q1?
Right. I see the big one, we're sitting at 70, but if most of it is in Q1,
yep,
which is typical, that will work
And
out.
what about staffing? Are we fully staffed, or are we?
We're close. We have a couple of positions posted, but we're close to fully staffed. We have one vacant position, but we're getting very close to fully staffed.
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion?
I'll second that.
A second. Any other discussions? Any public comment on this budget report? Go back to the council. Any objection? No objection. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, April.
Thank you, everyone.
Next, we have the Beach and Shoreline fiscal 25 funding report, and Nancy's going to give that, and we can do both items together.
Good morning, Council. Nancy McPhee, Product Development, and I am here this morning to ask for you to formalize the fiscal year 25 Beach and Shoreline funding. The Beach and Shoreline Review Workshop was held on April 24th, and it was attended by several TDC members, Commissioner Pendergrass, Councilman Steinke, Tony Lappy, Jay Johnson, Bill Wachulis, and Pam Cronin. We're very appreciative for their time in reviewing these requests. At the workshop, they discussed approving funding recommendations for 15 projects totaling $11,785,362. There were also 3 projects that were not eligible through the Beach and Shoreline program. They'd like for you today to discuss recommending that the Board of County Commissioners fund them from reserves in the amount of $944,751. But first, we need to make 11 legislative findings. So I've been told by Andrea that I can read them each, and you can move them all together at the end, but I will pause in between each in case you have questions on any of them. This is a part of the eligibility process for the funding requests. So the first request is request B from the City of Sanibel for beach and shoreline erosion monitoring. To fund this project, the TDC must make a legislative finding that erosion monitoring promotes tourism. The next request is C from the Captiva Erosion Prevention District for their Captiva Beach Park maintenance request. To fund parking lot and vehicle maintenance, TDC must make a legislative finding that such expenditures will improve, maintain, or restore beach park facilities and promote tourism.
I'm sorry, I think Rob had a question for the B.
No, I didn't know if we were going to have to approve each one of them as she went.
No, I believe, Andrea, we're going to read. Right, so but I'll pause in case you have questions on any specific request. The next request is request E from the City of Sanibel for their beach park operations and maintenance request to fund vehicles, restrooms, UTVs, pickup trucks, and tourism-related signage. TDC must make a legislative determination that these items promote tourism. The next request is Project F, Lee County Parks and Recreation, Operation Beach and Shoreline Maintenance. The TDC must make a legislative finding that portalets and vehicles will improve, maintain, or restore beach park facilities and promote tourism. The next request is H, Barrier Island Park Society for the Gasparilla Island Walking Trail Maintenance. To fund this project, TDC must make a factual determination that the project is related to and primarily promotes tourism. The next request is Town of Fort Myers Beach, Beach and Shoreline Funding Program request. To fund tourism-related interpretive signage, shade structures, vehicles, equipment, and portalets, TDC must make a legislative finding that they will improve, maintain, or restore beach park facilities and promote tourism. The next request is K, Gasparilla Island Administration, golf carts for park maintenance. And Bill, we did confirm that they will have lithium batteries in them. TDC must make a factual determination that the purchase of golf carts for beach park maintenance is related to tourism and primarily promotes such a purpose. The next request is L, Lee County Parks and Recreation for temporary restroom facilities. Tourist development tax proceeds may be used to provide restroom facilities if the TDC makes a legislative finding that such expenditures will promote tourism or that portable restrooms will improve, maintain, or restore beach park facilities. The next request is Gasparilla Island Administration Sea Grape Restroom, Phase 2 for construction. Tourist development tax proceeds may be used to provide restroom facilities to serve beach areas if TDC makes a legislative finding that such expenditures will promote tourism or will improve, maintain, or restore beach park facilities. And the last two requests have the same request for a legislative finding. They are for Lee County Transit's and then also a capital request for a new tram. To fund both projects, TDC must make a legislative finding that there is a clear and direct relationship between the promotion of tourism and the particular transportation service being offered.
Rob?
Yeah, I would just like some dialogue from the committee on P&Q, the transit question. So historically, we didn't, that I recall, we're reluctant to do transportation because we're the slippery slope would be there at the shoreline across Lee County. We ended up saying, okay, we need to get funding for our beach transportation or coastal transportation. And then we made a legislative finding for Lover's Key Park and for Kay Acosta. And in both cases, they were able to exhibit the need for this transportation, which seemed to fit in very well with beach and shoreline. Kay Acosta and Lover's Key, I think it was the remote access, getting people out to the area. So I guess what was discussed on this, is this a recurring? Have we done this many years, or is this a new one?
This is one we've done multiple years. This is the open style trolley that goes down Fort Myers Beach from Bowditch to the library. But as you saw in Joseph's notes about traffic, this is a key item to combat traffic, because I know from our guests are getting on that open air trolley and riding it down. It just ended for this year.
Seasonal.
It's a
Also,
seasonal
too,
trolley.
The experience that people had on the trolley was very positive.
Okay.
And what I liked, what they did this year, instead of these, they break down, they're very expensive and everything else, they were very, I thought it was a pretty good idea. They got a pickup truck that's going to tow this sort of, what would you call it, trailers, with it's very easy for people to get in and out of, and I think it's a better improvement from the old trolley system that they had. So we looked at it, and I think it's a good move.
It's kind of like conch train, like the, doing the keys, kind of like a conch train.
Yeah, kind of like
type of an experience.
It's a better usage, less breakdown, less maintenance when they don't have a truck to use for just tourism.
I mean, I could argue that it's needed year-round, but, so.
Thank you for the clarification.
We need a vote then on this?
Yes, we need a motion and a second on beach and shoreline.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Okay. And any other discussions? Any public comment on beach and shoreline? Okay, come back. Any objection? Objection, motion carries. Thank you, Nancy.
I have two more things for you to do.
Okay.
That was the legislature.
Almost.
That was the-
Almost.
Yeah. Here comes the money.
The first request I'm going to ask the TDC to consider is to approve everything in the far column, which is eligible for beach and shoreline. So the total amount of funding for these 15 projects is $11,785,362. That will be the first item we need to.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
You have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Any public comment? Come back to council. Any objection? No objection. Motion carries. Thank you.
item that I'll ask the TDC to consider is everything in this column. There's 3 projects that were not eligible through Beach and Shoreline, but they are eligible under the state statute, section 5B, for nature centers. So because they're not eligible through Beach and Shoreline, it was discussed at the workshop that we would perhaps ask the BOCC to consider funding these 3 projects at a total of $944,751 from reserves.
Rob, the thought process was that because beach and shoreline, it doesn't fit the technical definition, but it's still a tourism-based business. The biggest one being the Capes, Yellow Fever Creek, which is an actual nature center that it would draw a lot of tourists and tourist activities, that we should fund it. And the way we found to fund it is through reserves. It can't come out of the beach and shoreline money because of the statute, but it can come out of reserves.
So Nancy, would this then go to the commissioners for their approval to move that? So basically, all we're doing is making a recommendation? Yes. Okay. I'll make the motion that we move that item.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Second by Jay. Any discussion, any objections? I'm sorry, any public comment on that? Come back to council, any objections? No objection. Carries, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Another great picture of in the, thank you. To any other council information? Do you have anything?
There are a few things in your packet for your late night reading, but keep you informed on what's going on in the tourism industry. That's it.
Members have any comments or questions or any updates or anything? No?
Member items? No. Is that member items or is that comments on?
Yes.
I'm sorry? Oh.
Just have an update from FRLA. The lab-grown meat bill was recently signed by the governor, which prohibits the sale and manufacture of lab-grown meat in the state. That was one of the FRLA priorities for the year. And locally, we're working on some events, including our taco cook-off and golf tournament, and we look forward to engaging with the rest of the industry and our community leaders in that. We'll have updates coming. I believe we're back in Bonita for our taco cook-off. That's all from FRLA.
Great, thank you. Anything, Mr. Stern?
City of Bonita, obviously this is our year celebrating our 25th anniversary, and our birthday is not actually till December of this year, but we just had Celebrate Bonita, largest turnout we've ever had, beautiful day, thousands of people. We were surprised, but the Sheriff's Department was not busy at all because everybody was in such a good mood, well behaved, and that's always a good thing. So we're looking forward to that continuing. Something we're very proud of and I think is important to even our entire community is our Memorial Day event this year. We have, and I think I'd mentioned it before, the former commanding general of the 8th Air Force, and for those of you that are military people, his name is Lieutenant General Bob Elder, Robert Elder, 3-star general. And when we were all kids, we remember Strategic Air Command. Well, that's what he commanded. And he was the first commander of the development of Space Force, which has now become Space Command, which is now Space Force. He is our guest speaker on Memorial Day. That is at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, Veterans Day, the 27th, and at Riverside Park. I've known him for 55 years. He's a good speaker, much smarter than most people I know. And I think having someone of his gravitas being our speaker will, our veterans will appreciate it. So I would invite all of you to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're finishing up or nearing finishing up our beach burn project, which I think Bill can attest to. It turned out great. We approved the contract for the beach renourishment, so that should be starting fairly soon. In July, we are bringing back the 4th of July parade as well as the fireworks, all completely funded by either donations from residents and or workers that are working on the island to rebuild. So congratulations to them and thank them for their support. It'll be the same company doing the one that we did on the 4th on New Year's Eve. So if you saw that show, you know it lasts about 22 minutes. It's a pretty impressive show. So we're looking forward to doing that on the 4th.
Great, thank you. Bill?
We're excited to be hosting Scotty McCreery. The VCB and iHeart just announced. If you don't know who he is, he's won American Idol, and I think he's got the #1 hit right now, right, in the country. So that'll be September 29th. We also achieved, the Pink Show achieved Great Place to Work, which is an anonymous survey to all of our associates, and we are certified now, so continued with our culture.
Great.
Thank you.
Bill, you got anything for Cape Coral?
Well, just thanks to our EDO for being here at every one of our meetings to keep everyone apprised of what's going on in the Cape. We just approved our pier rebuild, gave direction, so we actually chose to remove the pilings that were damaged rather than just repair them and replace new. And so the permitting process will take a little bit longer to do it that way, but it'll then stand the test of time. So we're happy to have that. Of course, the beach has been open with the pier. The addition of bringing the pier back, that will gain a lot more attraction to our beach area there. The yacht club rebuild continues and garners more and more public support. We had our second of 2 public meetings 2 nights ago, and that went very well. Kimberly Horn, our designer, has done a great job of making renderings and AI videos of what it's going to be like when it's redone. So that's all coming back on track, and of course the Racket Club is just going to be an amazing addition to our area. So we're happy to do that, and I already talked about that earlier. So thank you.
Just quickly, we are about to break ground on our first entertainment district on property that the village purchased in the last couple of years. We're starting to deal, or not starting, we are in the process of dealing with our own staff, with the rules that we have set in place, and finding what developers have been going through for a long time, getting through the permitting process, and this public-private partnership has been a little bit of a challenge for us, so we appreciate what developers are going through. We're seeing our own rules in that. And we're about there. We're about ready to start.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering, in light of some of the commentary on the negative experiences, namely, if it wouldn't be a worthwhile discussion to potentially bring somebody in from the DOT to discuss briefly some of the major intersections and projects that are going on. I think about Sanibel Causeway, I think about Colonial, Mount Lachey, and there's a lot of things going. There's a lot of things in the media that are not in the media, they're, I guess, on social media that there's really no truth to. One great example would be somebody posted the four-way stop in Pine Island Center. The problem was it was actually the Colonial 75 exchange, and then there's tons of comments from all these islanders about how crazy that four-way stop is. And so somebody's lifted one thing and posted it to another. People, if council thought it was worthwhile, spend 20 minutes or something on these meetings.
Yeah, that's a great topic, and maybe in the future we could have Rob Price, for example, come to one of our meetings and give an update, because most of the elected people in this council knows what's going on with their MPO and stuff. Like right now, a lot of people don't realize over the next 5 years, our Lee County budget for transportation is $4 billion. That's just Lee County. That's not counting MPO projects, Benita Springs, Cape Coral projects. So you got in state projects, for example, you mentioned Colonial, which is a state project, and we all deal with that every day, and that's running about 1.5 years behind, I believe, because it's a state project, and that happens. I know we dealt with it a couple of years ago in Estero with Corkscrew at I-75, but when you see all the improvements we're doing over the next 5 years with the extension of Three Oaks out to Daniels, Alico Road extension, Birch Store Road, and the new bridges, traffic will get better. It's just, we had such an influx of people here the last 5 years with the COVID happening. We had the downturn, and then more came here, and growth was falling growth basically on transportation projects. But then we got kind of ahead of ourselves because more people came here. We expect that for 21 and 20. But yeah, we'll do that in the future. But we got to have 10 minutes. Rob from Price, our DOT director, and give an update. Because if you're not involved with MPO, you're not sitting and seeing the projects, and that's a problem. There's a lot of misinformation. People, obviously social media. We don't set policy based upon social media, but people, they continue to filter that out to the community, and that's our hardest part of our job as an open council. People do the same thing, is trying to get the correct information out to citizens. And so many different venues to get people information out, from Facebook to Instagram to social media, Snapchat, and local news, local papers. So there's so many different sources trying to get the same story disseminated out. Is just really a challenge, though. But when the projects were done, people were happy. It was dealt with the roundabout and gateway. People thought it was the worst thing. People doing weddings out there now. But the point is, people just don't like change. And people, you get that 1% of the population that is dense on next door, social media, and that's what people hear. Bill's shaking his head. I know they deal with that a lot in the Cape and different areas. And Estero has their challenges, their group of people. Benita has their group of people, and we deal with it countywide. So, but there's a lot of projects going on, and once they're all facilitated and completed, you'll see some changes now. The bridges, obviously, that's something else for the Pylon, Matlacha, and the Sandoval Causeway. It's something no one expected 2 years ago. So, but those are getting done. Yes, sir.
Commissioner, I think one of the things that I keep hearing over and over again is when people find out that we have these projects and that they're moving forward, they're shocked that we can't get them done in 6 months.
Right.
Road projects.
I mean,
educating the public to that.
It is frustrating. I mean, if you look at the permitting, the process, we all have to go through the regulatory process, and then trying to go through the procurement process and get the people in place, and then trying to get them in place and get them. We have those challenges at the airport. We have Steve and Carol here today from the airport. We have those challenges there with just the labor part of it, trying to get the contractors in place and get the job done. I was sitting there at Colonial and Fowler yesterday and watching the workers, and everybody knows the story, 8 workers and 1 person shoveling, and this is kind of like, okay, guys, let's get these turn lanes done here. But once all the projects are going to be done, I think our traffic flow through the whole network, through the county, we all live, like you were talking earlier, they stay in Benita, they're going to travel with Cape Coral, they're going to travel like that either. So we're all using the roads. So that's really where the boundaries are. Just trying to get all the projects working together, though. That's just it's frustrating. I remember going through VAC conferences back 10 years ago when I first got elected, and one of the challenges said that most transportation projects you see started will never get done while you're in office because they take so long through the regulatory process and transport and funding. But now the good thing for us compared to what it was 10 years ago, all these funding projects for roads, they're all funded. I mean, I'm looking at Three Oaks Extension, it was $168 million. It's funded. It's being built now, but it used to be 10 years ago, projects were being built and they weren't being funded. They were being funded as they go. But now, based upon impact fees, proportionate share, prop share, gas taxes, all these projects are being funded now. Most of our projects are funded. There's some that are not funded, but they're going to be funded over the next couple of years, though. So, yes, sir.
You and I were in a meeting last month together. I was taking, I'm the secretary of the club, so I was taking notes on this. One statement, you made a comment about how many people moved to Lee County last year. Can you repeat that number again?
Was it 80,000? I'm trying to remember what date I had there in front of me.
7,000 in my mind.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I remember the exact number. I forgot. Yeah, it was a big number. It'd be based upon, if you look around, I mean, I think we all can tell. I think the census hurt us this year with this cycle because with the COVID going on. They were really limited. The workers were obviously really limited where they went. And you drive through Lehigh, Cape Coral, San Carlos Park, and you see 8 cars in the driveway. We know there's not 2 people living there. And it's unfortunate. I wish we could do a better job creating a census based upon utility hookup, based upon usage, and actually counting vehicles in driveways, not just people, how many people we think, projecting how many people live there, 2.1 people live there. Well, no, it's 6 cars, 8 cars in the driveway. The kids are living with their parents. Aunts are living with their family members. So I think the real numbers, if you really knew the real numbers, that's a whole lot exhausted more than what we really are, especially like areas like Lehigh and Cape Coral, where you have condensed residential like that. So we're trying to build infrastructure and build schools and build everything based upon those census numbers from 2020. But in reality, I think that we all see the numbers a little bit different. People actually living here full time. And you see all the new apartments going on and everything. It's just, some of the cities love apartments. I know we need housing, but it's not affordable. But that's just pushing those numbers and pushing the transportation concurrency numbers up. So, Bill, you see that in Cape Coral with the cars in the driveway? Yeah.
That
well, not only cars in the driveway, but like you mentioned, multifamily units. We've had numbers of those open, and that brings an influx immediately that, you then have to deal with, so.
Right. And then our visitors come during that peak time between, obviously between Thanksgiving and, Easter, and this doubles the traffic then. So, but you guys okay with getting somebody here coming in the future? We have a light schedule to get DOT give a 10-minute presentation?
Sure.
Perfect, great, thank you. Tony, do you have anything?
Good news. For us, we awarded the contract with colleges, and so we're in final design and hopefully get permitting done maybe by September and put shovels in the ground by October to be in colleges. So that is sort of underway.
How many construction costs came in what you expected, or?
Pretty much so. The good news is the contractor is recently doing one, and so he knows what the numbers are, so we look at things pretty carefully. And, it's going to be probably come out on $13 million for 22 units. Different sizes, some of them do better than,
Right.
but it'll be a nice project. We're excited about getting our process started, that one, and move on to the next one, and then the next one. If there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
How long do you think it will take to?
Actually, we're very excited. We think that if, in a perfect world, maybe we get through the windy, everything keeps going well. We're hoping that maybe, and ideally, we'd love to get some rooms open by December of 25. So we want to make that season, certainly by January and that first quarter, for sure. But we're pretty excited about it. We're pretty confident, and we'll see what happens.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but since we're sitting here, and it came up this morning, actually, somebody else mentioned it to me, asked me to bring it up. I just want everybody to know, I know a couple of people in this room here has actually attended, the mayor, Myrtle Beach, attended a meeting with me a few weeks ago in Lehigh Acres. We have a couple of rogue state representatives out there pushing a single-member district on the county commission, and I think they're asking now to have a meeting maybe in Bonita Springs next to their city hall. Basically, we have the private appraiser here that has his passion is to make the county commissioner single-member district, and what that would look like is, as I'm looking around the table here, no one at this table here could vote or vote against me in the future. Now, forget about when Cecil's gone, but that means that person that replaces me, when you call that person sitting in this seat, he or she would not say, okay, based upon the county charter, I couldn't help you or talk to you because you're not my district commissioner. So anyway, there's been a push for that. It went through charter review, goes through charter review every 8 years. It failed again this past year. So based upon the fail of that, Matt Caldwell's personal passion is to make us county commissioners single-member districts. So that means if Tony called me for something on Captiva, I'm like, sorry, Tony, I can't talk to you. You're not in my district. Even though Bill may live in my district, if his business is in the beach, I couldn't talk to him about his business project. So anyway, it's just it's ego and it's politics at its finest. Anyway, if anybody hears about that, it fell last year in the state when they brought it up. State leadership saw there's no need for it in Lee County to take your vote away. So based upon the way they're projecting it is you can only single district. I mean, 80% of the people in the room couldn't vote. You would lose your vote before the commission. And I personally, when I'm out of office, I don't want to lose my vote to vote against the other four that can raise my taxes or build that road next to my house. So, and I don't think you as council people would want to have that, lose that relationship, because picture dealing with commissioners that it's not in your district. Do you really think the commissioners in Norfolk Myers or Cape Coral are going to talk to somebody in Bonita Springs or Estero? They could care less. Right now we have accountability with everybody being elected at large. So it's just it's unfortunate, but we have to go through this every couple of years, and it's for our own political reasons. So politics at its finest. Yes, Bill.
I'm happy to chime in from a different angle. We've had the same effort happen in Cape Coral, and I think Cape Coral and Lee County are similar in the sense that we are still growing, and there's not equal amenity and availability in every area in Lee County, just like there isn't in Cape Coral. And so for me, it's important for me that a leadership body, in your case, county commission, in ours, city council, our horse is pulling the wagon in the same direction, and that everything is coordinated and there's an understanding of who needs what when. And so I still believe at the county level and at least and at our city level that those leaders need to consider all of the members of society, if you will, and decisions need to be made with everyone's best interest in mind. And it's not time for us to play jump ball. And that I believe is what happens if you go to single member district at the county level, and in our case in the city level, you've got 6, 7 people that are playing jump ball, trying to only benefit a segment of the population. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, can we just send an MPO and we're doing a road project and the person after me would care less about how Burnstone Road is completed or how project in Benita Springs, and think about the transportation long-term network when you have that lose the respect, to lose accountability. When I'm sitting here voting on something that doesn't matter. In that case, why it'd be like a Naples City Council person voting here that has no input in our county. So it's the same thing. It's just it's unfortunate, but thank you for understanding. I know the realtors are coming out against everybody else, and it probably will die off again like it did last year. But Matt's pretty determined to keep talking about it, trying to get some type of stage to talk about it, so they can pick and choose their candidates for the future. And it's just not right to do that. So I've actually had some representatives say they're having. How do we find our candidates if they'd run countywide? Well, my job isn't made to be easy. If I run countywide or as district, it doesn't really make it. Should be an easy way to run for office. So it's unfortunate they think that way. They can't knock on all the doors, they said. So I'm not sure why is that important. You can't knock on all the doors in Benita Springs. Well, some try, but they get arrested. But just a trespass. Sorry.
I appreciate Bill stepping up to the plate, and I'll say personally, yes, I've been reached out to, and I look at over 2 decades here. And the communication between county and the municipalities has never been better than it's been in the last 5, 6 years. I'd hate to see that go away.
Yeah, it's just really unfortunate. And Matt didn't do this when he was in the House member for 8 years. He knew how unpopular it was. He knew he'd be running for a state cabinet seat in the future. I mean, going back, I remember sitting with Matt before I was even elected back in 2008 and 2007. We did PACs together for other issues and stuff. And, it was an issue back then because they weren't in the eye of the Republican Party locally. And I'm not going to get into politics. They weren't recognized because they weren't countywide. And it bothers some people that everybody in this room, if you live in Lee County, you can vote for me or vote against me. And it's political ego. They didn't like that they don't have that audience, and they want to take that away from the county. So, and it's also contractual too. If you go farther, it's to Lee County, making the county mayor that would have sole authority and veto the Board of County Commissioners' power to make sure this contract for this septic or sewer company or this utility company gets the contract. So it's all, you see all this money coming to the counties and cities with the hurricane. I know Dan's probably dealing with it down the beach with all the new development and investors and people coming in. Everybody wants to slice of that pie, the $2.2 billion DBG funds that lucky we got from my helicopter ride with the president. The point is, all that is just a driving force behind all this stuff. On top, they're going to talk about representation, but there's not to this day I know anybody in Lee County that's contacted my office has not been represented. So, if you live in Alva, Pine Island, it doesn't matter. Call them
Good thing is we don't have to worry about FEMA, right?
Yeah. Anyway, so on a positive note, I just want to make sure everybody's aware of it. It's not going anywhere as of now. We got a lot of support on the state side. Last year, the leadership in Tallahassee and our senator, Pasadena, Senator Albright, was very forthcoming that they did not support it. It should be a local home rule. The state should be making that decision. That's like the state trying to make decisions for the city of Cape Coral. That's not their job. They should not have their authority within their preview. Our job is for county, and their job is state. So they should be focused on that. So I respect home rules. So anyway, thank you. Anybody else have anything else? Great. Thank you. We'll be adjourned. See you next month.